Welcome, everyone, to the Alpha Concepts Podcast, where we'll talk about everything going on in the gun culture, from training to gear and gun rights advocacy. Hi, I'm Thomas Krall, and I'll be your host on this adventure. In today's episode, we have Chris Lindblom from Lyman Mark 7, and we're going to talk about some of their products, especially some of their newer products that caught my attention. Chris, say hi to the world.
Hey, how you guys doing?
So, Chris, you are the assistant marketing manager, is that correct?
Yeah. I kind of, manage and maintain our digital presence from social media to influence relations and then, all of our digital analytics and stuff like that.
Do you want to give the listeners a rundown on what Lyman is, what the products are you offer? Just kind of let them know if anyone's not familiar with your company.
Yeah. So Lyman Products is it's a parent company to a couple of different brands. Now, Lyman itself, it started out, back in the 1800s as a gun sight company, and then over time has actually evolved into more of a reloading company. From presses to case gauges to pretty much all things that are reloading, even more so also some gun care maintenance. And we also have, some smaller brands amongst our parent company, which are things like, Packmeyer, which is, grips and butt stocks. And then you got Tacstar, which is tactical shotgun accessories. Mark 7, which we just recently purchased the beginning of last year, probably the end of the first quarter. And that's, more of the high-end reloading side and reloading automation and sensors. And then you got a couple other things like, Butch's gun oil and gun care and things like that. So all in all, Lyman is a parent company to a bunch of different brands. We offer over 2,000 different products. And, again, the newest product is that Mark 7.
Yeah, so that Mark 7 specifically, I was just scrolling through BoobTube like millions of other Americans, and I saw a press, and I sat there watching a video of ammunition just be churned out at an amazing rate. And obviously I've seen commercial presses before, and that's one animal, but this looked very familiar to kind of a homebrew type of reloading press. And so I think it was the, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it was the Revolution, which had the hand crank that you can add an auto drive to, or is that the Evolution?
So that's the Evolution. So, taking a step back, we started off, or when we bought the company, we already had the Revolution, which is the more commercial side, reloading machine that's already automated and everything like that. And then we have the Evolution, which is the more consumer side machine, which, yes, it can be manual or auto driven. And then obviously we have the auto drive itself, which is meant to auto drive the Evolution or say a Dillon press, 650, 1050, 1150, or 1100, anything like that.
So the Evolution, you can buy that. You can outfit it later on with the drive. You can buy it as it is with just a hand crank. And for one pull of the crank, you're going to yield one round of ammunition, correct?
Correct. So that's, how a lot of people would come into the Evolution or the Mark 7 branding would be, the Evolution manual, which, yes, it's hand crank, but all of our presses are actually designed to be automated. While no other press in the industry currently was designed with automation in mind, that's kind of the difference between Mark 7. Because, when they first started the company, there was a couple of competitive shooters that were, shooting a ton of ammo a month, and they were actually, pulling that handle on, I think it was a Dillon 1050 at the time. They're pulling it so often, they figured, we got to start automating these machines. It doesn't make sense for us to shoot 50, 60, 70,000 rounds a year pulling a handle the whole time. So they actually designed the auto drive first for that. And then over time, they actually figured out that the Dillon presses, while they work and they're great and they do things that we want them to do, they weren't designed for automation. So they ended up actually going back and designing a press for automation. So that's where they kind of came out with the Revolution. They wanted to automate a machine. They wanted to be able to produce its volume and be efficient. And that's kind of how we got to the Revolution stage. And then from there, we were able to scale it back to make it more consumer friendly with the Evolution.
So are you able to tell me about the how many rounds per minute or rounds per hour these machines are going to spit out?
Yeah, so these machines, the Revolution and the Evolution, when they're automated, are they're rated for 3,500 rounds an hour.
3,500 rounds per hour.
That's their max speed, their max capacity.
Right.
If you're actually loading ammunition, depending on the ammunition, your case prep and things like that, you're going to dial it back because you're going to have, like some bottom dwell or top dwell. One thing that's great about these machines, and one of the biggest features about these machines, is complete customization for like the torque and, the speed and the movement. You can, have it speed up at the top of the index. And then, as it gets to the bottom of the dwell, you can have it slow down if you need to, depending on what you're loading.
And that's all controlled through a tablet, right? It's completely digital.
Yep. Our software controls all of that, from the amount of torque that you want to apply with the digital clutch, to the speed, and it also controls all the sensors.
Yeah, and the sensors, I think, are highly important because you've got sensors that will turn off the machine if you get like a double charge, for example, or if primers are upside down, right? I mean, you had like 4 or 5 different sensors when I was looking at the website.
Exactly. That's exactly it. So, things like, the bullet sense, if you have a bullet that's a little, cockeyed or upside down or not there, it'll stop the machine. Or the powder check, you're right. If it the powder charge is not where you set it, or say they didn't throw enough powder, or, it did double charge, it'll stop the machine and actually let you know what the malfunction was.
And I think that's great if you're doing high volume, which obviously these machines are meant for. You need to know that. Obviously, you can't check every single round for quality control. You can obviously do some spot checks, but if you're cranking out 2,500 rounds a minute, you need to know when something's going wrong.
Exactly. It's just one of those extra steps that keeps the ammunition that you're making up to quality and efficiency. I mean, like you said, when you're running at 2,500 rounds per hour, there's no possible way you can keep an eye on every station. There's 10 stations on these presses. So there's no possible way that you're going to be able to keep an eye on it. So that's where the importance of some of these sensors come in, because you can have peace of mind that, all right, everything's working correctly. And if there is a hiccup throughout the process, I'm not, starting to load a whole bunch of ammo wrong, but it'll stop the machine. You can fix whatever's, incorrect, and then you can keep pumping out some ammo.
I saw a video where a person who had one of your machines, I don't recall which, if it was the Evolution or the Revolution, but he had fitted a bunch of little cameras like the ones you would use for running through a pipe, and he indexed each camera on the different stations, and he had an array of monitors, and I thought I would go absolutely nuts just sitting there watching 5 different cameras continuously. Like, you're going to get cross-eyed after a few minutes of that, but it seemed to work for him. He was pumping out, he said that he was getting 1,600 rounds an hour, that he was actually the bottleneck because, obviously refilling components and whatnot, the machine it doesn't run indefinitely. Someone's got to refill the powder and the bullets and everything else.
Yeah, no, definitely. So, some people, it's, the only problem with, just putting all those, say, cameras on there is, your only quality control there is your eye.
Exactly.
And the human eye can make tons of mistakes where a sensor is very consistent, and it won't take a break. It won't blink. It won't, get distracted. So I'm assuming, and correct me if I'm wrong, obviously you said that these machines are designed from the get-go, engineered to be automated, whereas other machines are automated after the fact. So the assumption is that maybe some gears are a little heavier duty or whatnot. What does it mean when you say designed to be automated? So it's just pretty much designed to handle the stress of long-term automation. When you're using a manual press, you can actually feel if there is any kind of, stress to the machine. I know our sensors work for torque and stuff like that, but, when you're doing millions of rounds, things are just going to wear out, and just over time break or just not work properly or function properly, or, say something does happen and like a sensor doesn't catch it or something like that on other presses. These machines are made so that when they are running up to speed, up to automation, that they'll last a long time, from the way that they're, the automation itself is designed to the way the press tool head goes up and down and things like that. Pretty much, it's just that. I mean, I don't have all the information specifically on the design because, I'm the marketing guy, but they are designed specifically with automation in mind to last through those millions of rounds. And I believe there's some people out there who are actually producing on Mark 7 who've gone way above 1 million rounds produced on, a single machine.
And that was going to be one of my questions. What's the rating? Like, what's the life cycle expectancy? How many rounds do you anticipate one of these machines being able to put out? I mean, I would have to assume it's well over 1 million. I mean,
yeah, no, for sure. It's definitely well over 1 million. Small things every once in a while, like a spring, say you crush a spring that goes around or something like that.
I mean, that's maintenance
these
stuff.
These machines are pretty much ready to run for the life cycle of whatever you're going to be using it for. If you're using machines properly, the sky's the limit for the amount that they can actually produce. And once you have the machine, it's very easy to, if something does malfunction through its lifetime, it's very easy to get that replaced.
So let me ask you this. Has anybody, to the best of your knowledge, actually been able to catastrophically break one yet?
In proper use. So, I don't work in the customer service or the returns down. We have an office down in Florida that, really, heads that up. And I know that they've gotten some machines or, calls that saying, we've, something malfunctioned and there was, some malfunctions happening with the machine. But I have yet to hear of anybody that was just using the machine and it broke. And I pay attention pretty strictly to all the social media and all, reviews and things like that. And I've yet to see anybody complain about the machines breaking.
So if I were to buy this machine, you believe it would be an heirloom almost, where my kids would probably be selling it for pennies on the dollar when I die.
Yeah. So yes, that's exactly what we're going for when we built these machines. They're meant to last. And one of the draws to Lyman or that the company had to Lyman was how well these machines were built. I mean, Lyman historically has been producing presses for a long time, and I still get people every single day, writing us or commenting saying, they're still using their grandfather's old T-Mag or something like that from Lyman. And we want to actually take that legacy and shift it on over to Mark 7. And, we have a full team of engineers pretty much round the clock working on these things to make sure that they're the top quality they can be.
And where are they made?
So manufacturing right now, so they're pretty much all United States made. They're all pretty much every piece is made in the USA. And we're actually just now starting to really start to produce the majority of the presses in-house in our Lyman facility in Middletown, Connecticut.
Nice. That's good to hear. Nowadays, with all the Chinese knockoffs and everything, that the quality control over there is obviously not that great, and all the tariffs and everything else that we're hearing about on the news, it's nice to hear that there's still companies manufacturing in the United States.
Yeah, we've always been a company that wants to make sure that we produce as much as we can, and just with recent events and current events, producing our own products in-house within our own factories and our own workers, controlling the quality of everything that goes out ourselves, that's very important to us and, has been pretty important to Lyman for the entire life cycle of the company.
So on these two machines, they, what rounds are they capable of spitting out? Like, obviously center fire, right? Nobody's reloading rim fire, but
No.
what, how large of a round can it do? Can it do a 30-06?
So pretty much the Evolution and the Revolution press, they can do up to 308.
Okay.
Just, as long as it's within that spec of size, it has to be able to at least fit within the tool head stroke. So if it can fit in there and there's a shell plate for it, it can be done. So, anywhere from 380, 9 mil up to, 308 would be the...
So pretty much all the common calibers and even some Wildcats.
Just about every common caliber you can think of, you can load on there.
Cool. And you guys sell dies? Obviously you don't want people to use someone else's dies, but are you capable of using someone else's dies?
They are. They're capable, of using whatever your favorite die set is. We did recently just come out with the Lyman Pro Series dies, which were actually designed, by Lyman to actually work best with automation. Because, like I said, a lot of things, when you're regular reloading by hand or, you're not producing thousands and thousands a week, there's different problems or issues that come with stress on machines. And it also comes with stress on your dies. So we actually designed out a new set of dies that, can handle the rate of ammunition being put out. And that's the Lyman Pro Series.
So obviously beefy machines designed to be automated, motors cost money, all of that. The starting price on your guys' website for the Evolution machine without any sort of automation, just the hand crank, was, I believe, off the top of my head, like $2,900.
Yep, $2,994.
Now that's a higher end machine, and when you add on the dies and the sensors and everything else, I think it went up to like close to $7,000. Does that sound about accurate?
So that would be with an auto drive,
right?
If you're with that hand press, like what you're getting the 11-inch case feeder, mechanical powder drop, you're getting stack priming, just about everything that you're going to need to load minus the dies. One of those things you're going to have to purchase after the fact is going to be your die set. If you want a bullet feeder, I would recommend it. Even if you're hand loading, it just makes life a lot easier because you can still load at pretty high rates with the hand press. And then, yes, if you get into the auto drive, then you're going to be looking at, another about 2,000 or so. And then you stack on sensors. So it can get up there. But I mean, in terms of output, and comparability, to be automated reloading at that speed, 7,000 is kind of not that insane.
Yeah. I mean, if you're shooting 40, 50,000 rounds a year, then obviously you're going to want something capable of doing that. And if you're saving a few cents on every round, and nowadays with the way ammunition prices double what it was in January, obviously you're going to save more than a few cents if you're able to get primers. But
that's a big if.
That's a big if. Yeah. I mean, I don't reload myself, but I've been looking around for friends because they know that sometimes I am able to find things. Like right now, I'm 9mm ammunition is not available at any gun store, but you can still, well, I shouldn't say any, because some gun stores do have it, and they get lucky, they get a shipment, and they sell out quick. But you can still get it online at some websites if you're willing to pay. And so friends are asking me, can you give me this? Do you know where this is? And pistol primers, they are even harder to get than 9mm or 223 right now.
Yeah, small pistol and small rifle right now are, they're unicorns to find. With the surge in the current state of the industry, I mean, everything's difficult to find. But you can find things if you're looking hard enough or you're willing to pay. So, the world is an interesting place right now. We're trying to keep up with supply. Everybody is. Our company as well is trying to keep up with the constant demand for things. There's tons of new shooters in the industry. They're coming in at a faster rate than I think ever before. If what I heard was correct.
Sure.
And, being a new shooter, I couldn't imagine coming into an industry and, buying a firearm and getting my license, depending on the state, and then not being able to find ammo. So I do feel like we're going to see a lot of new people coming into the reloading market, actually. And we have, the demographics has been changing, and it's been wild.
So I'm a firearm instructor, and the reason why I started doing research on reloading, because I'm not a reloader. I buy my ammo in bulk, and I shoot it, and I provide it to students, and I having a hard time getting ammo, and I have to spend time to find the deals. Long story short, so I've got four or 5 gallon buckets in my basement full of brass that I've collected from classes because, my goal was I'm going to collect this brass until I retire and then I'll reload, because who's got time for that? And then I saw automated press, that was within a homeowner's budget, right? I'm not talking about the commercial.
Yep.
And
exactly.
I was like, oh, okay, all right, now we're starting to get somewhere. But obviously, with licensing, you've got to have an ammunition manufacturer's license, and you've got to have liability insurance if you want to start selling this ammo. It's for someone in my position, it's not going to be feasible. I'm just going to keep buying it until I get to the point where I have the time. But just something about your automated system. Watching it was like hypnotic, staring at those rounds just spitting out of the system. But somebody could, in theory, open up a small-time ammunition loading company and get their company started on one of your machines.
So we're seeing a lot of that. We're seeing small ammunition manufacturers that are coming out and doing, a la carte orders for specific either competitive shooters who have a specific load for their firearm, or we're seeing, brass processing companies who are buying up bulk unprocessed range brass and then processing on these machines. Prior to us having this automation, there really wasn't that much to offer automation for the commercial level, even the small time commercial level, that wasn't one of the major automated brands and the actual, manufacturing machines that, upwards of $50,000, $100,000, so this machine gives the smaller companies or the smaller groups that want to start doing this stuff the opportunity at a lower introduction cost.
And your machine also will prep spent brass, right? So,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, obviously you want to tumble it and clean it, but it's popping out those primers and prepping the pocket, correct?
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Swage, everything. You could take those buckets of brass that you have and process them, fairly quickly with a machine like this. And even if, say, you weren't going to do anything with that, you have a few 5-gallon buckets worth of brass, you could probably pay off a press with that.
Wow. You're going to get me in trouble, I think, Chris. You should stop talking.
Yeah. Hopefully that's my job,
Yeah, you're in marketing. That is, you're good at it. It's not a hard sale, I promise. I like machines and I like everything that has to do with guns, and it's like the only thing keeping me back is knowing my wife will probably slit my throat if I.
I hear that a ton actually. Got to talk to the boss. And that's understandable because it isn't a few $100 price. It is an investment, but. One thing I can say, I was never a reloader myself. Prior to working at Lyman, my shooting experience was the Marine Corps and then hunting and, recreational shooting. Never reloaded, always bought. Then I got into the company, started learning about it, started reloading myself. And then I started using Mark 7 machines. Like, I've gained a whole bunch of knowledge that I probably never would have if I didn't start. A better understanding of, all firearms, the components, different things, standard deviation of rounds and things like that. And, to be fair, reloading's brought me way closer to the industry.
So let me ask you, if obviously it is an investment, it's a big investment, but it is an investment. If someone wants to just get started in reloading, they're probably not going to jump on a $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 machine. What machine would you be putting someone recommending, saying, hey, it's a good starter machine. It's going to give you, what do they call them? Progressives, where it's actually doing most of the work for you. Is that correct?
Yeah. So these are technically the Mark 7 evolutions of progressive press. It is one where, you pull the handle and multiple actions are happening on each. Then you got your single stage, which is, you have one die set up and, you do all of that. Say you have 100, rounds to load. You do one specific portion of that reloading job, for all of those things, and you switch your die out and do it again. And then you have something as in the turret presses, like the Lyman All-American 8, which is a stationed press. So it has 8 stations on top, but it doesn't, when you pull the handle, only one of those stations works, and then you change the station by turning the turret head.
So you'd pull the handle, turn the head, pull the handle, turn the head, pull the handle, turn the head, that sort of thing?
Yeah, or you can do, all 100 cases,
Sure.
Say your size, you can size all 100, then turn the head and do your next job on there. But for a new reloader, it depends on the reloader. If you're a competitive shooter that's always bought, or you shoot a ton of 223 9mm, historically reloading might not have been for you on a single stage, but a progressive would be your thing. You're shooting high volume, of a common round, so you're going to want to produce at a higher volume. You're not going to sit there and by hand do 3,000, 4,000 rounds every so often. But say you're a long range shooter, a hunter, you're looking for that really precise measurements and things like that. So you're going to take the time to use a single stage and take the time to do each station and make sure it's up to quality that you're trying to set.
Right, because some of those precision shooters, they will weigh their powder on digital scales, and they will weigh each bullet to make sure that they're all within, a couple percent of
They'll take
weight.
a volume. They'll sort their brass by volume within the case. It's a different ball game than the high volume 9mm producers.
Absolutely, because you're not looking for that split your hair type of accuracy when you're doing something like 3-gun or defensive training. You don't need hair splitting accuracy. If you can hold a couple inches, you're doing awesome. And most guns shoot better than the shooters, is what I like to say.
So I wouldn't even say that new shooters wouldn't be, I wouldn't say the evolution's not for new reloaders. It just depends on what kind of a shooter you want to be. If I could, I would have started 100% on a progressive press.
Right.
Because my style shooting is more volume. I don't, do much long range. Everything I do is within 9, 45, 223, things like that. And it's mostly target shooting. So I'm not doing it at range. I'm doing it for speed, volume, and, a progressive press is just kind of where I would be as a shooter.
Yeah, I get that. Absolutely. I mean, it has to do with the right tool for the job. If you're looking for super high precision, it's not the right tool. Obviously, you're not losing anything in terms of precision, but you're not getting split hair type of precision. But you are getting that super high volume that you would want if you're shooting super high volume. If you're a competitive shooter or getting started making ammunition. Something like that, and then you could get into reloading for $1,000 if you wanted to. It seems like if you got, your single stage setups, you probably could get into it for that cheap.
Yeah, and if I would recommend anybody who's getting into reloading, do research on the style shooter you are. Join some forums, talk to people, because you don't want to get into reloading and have it be more of a chore than anything. Say you are that volume and you just you're going very, very inexpensive on all your stuff, but you're actually ending up spending so much time reloading because you don't have the efficiency or the volume. So my biggest advice would be just find out what kind of a shooter you're going to be and match the press to the type of shooting that you do.
And I think that's good advice. I would never in a million years want to sit there and individually run a round at a time, but to load all the components, get my program dialed in, and then just sit there with the cigar watching the press do its thing. I mean, I would seriously just sit there and load for fun. Like I would just have pails of ammunition sitting in my corner because just to sit there and watch, I'm telling you, it was hypnotic watching it, and I would just do it for fun, the fun of it, smoking the cigar, watching rounds spit out.
Insanely satisfying watching the buckets just fill up with ammo, loaded ammo. Throwing some primers in, throwing some case bullets, powder, and then watching just ammo, just loaded rounds pump out. It's satisfying. I do it all the time just because I'm obviously around the machines, but it doesn't get old watching it at all.
What Lyman needs to do is they need to do an 8-hour video just of the machine spitting out ammunition, and I could put it on in the background while I'm at work. That would be you'd get a lot of
ASMR, some loading ASMR.
Yeah, you'd have so many views just from me alone. I promise you that.
Go to sleep to a Evolution, just cranking out 45. Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. So Lyman, like I think you mentioned, has a lot of brands, a lot of offshoots. Tell me about any of the others. We've been spending a lot of time on the Mark 7 specifically. Tell me about some of the other brands that Lyman has.
So Azum's, with the current climate of the world, Azum's been very popular, just all the time, but even more now. Azum's are training rounds, pretty much dummy rounds.
The red snap caps.
Exactly. You got snap caps and striker caps. We have series of them that pretty much just about every caliber you can get them in. And
I have a beef with you right there. I just had to buy some 38 short, except my 38 shorts. So you owe me some 38 short snap caps because I had to buy different. And I don't.
So just about every caliber. And production has been insane because of, all these new shooters and instructors. I mean, I talked to a few firearms instructors myself, and they're just swamped. They can't stop. They can't find the time to do the classes that they need to do for all these people that want classes. So, and one of the things that obviously would be a great tool for somebody to train is loading magazines. These first-time shooters, people don't realize, some of these people have never loaded a magazine in their life. And you don't want them starting off touching a magazine with, live ammo. So the Zoom round comes in perfect for that scenario.
There are some instructors who would disagree with you and who would say that you're building complacency, and I don't. I agree with you. I start all of my students in my beginner classes, my concealed carry classes. I'm gonna show them how to load a magazine using snap caps, dummy rounds. They're gonna show me how to load a magazine using snap cap, dummy rounds. I want to make sure they understand. It's one of those things where they have a hard time, and then they get it, and then once they get it, it's not, it's like riding a bike, right? You have a hard time, you fall off, you have a hard time, you fall off, you have a hard time, you fall off, and then all of a sudden something clicks, you figure it out, and you never forget it again. So I have in every single class using dummy rounds, and that's why I had to buy the 38 short, because I was doubling up. My class sizes have grown, and so I was using my 38 special and my 9mm semi-automatic, and okay, here I'm going to show you semi, you show me. I'm going to show you revolver, you show me. But I needed to, because of class sizes being, like you said, the way things are in the world, and class sizes have gotten larger. I needed to bring on an assistant instructor, because we do that hands-on in every single class. And the only other revolver, because I'm a semi-auto guy, the only other revolver I owned is an old 38 short, which I never use. It just sits in my safe. So I said, well, hey, let's get some use out of this thing. Went to get some snap caps, and they don't exist. And so, I got, just some reloader in his basement making dummy rounds, selling them for $5 each. It's all I could do. I don't like using like the fake reloaded ammunition where, maybe they'll drill a hole, or in this case, I had them put rubber where the primer goes, because at first glance, right, you look at it and your A-Zoom snap caps, they're red. So you look at it and you immediately know that is a dummy round. Whereas the ones where someone with a press, just basically makes a round of ammunition without primer and powder, you look at it and you don't know at first glance.
I agree with you 100% on that. It's not, obviously 99.9% of the time, if you're being safe, nothing will ever happen. But it's those small little details, like dummy round looking like, live ammunition, that could be the difference between, some sort of a malfunction or an ND and, safe use.
Absolutely.
And it's, not even completely at the fault of somebody, but it's just one of those things that maybe you miss it that one time because
that's all it takes.
You just assumed it was dummy because you're loading dummy. That's all it takes, is that small little factor.
So what I did was when I got these dummy rounds, of course, I inspected them. I looked at them. Yes, that's rubber. I poked it with a screwdriver. Yes, that's rubber. I loaded them in the revolver. And I squeezed them off, because, you don't want in a class, your first class. Okay, now just go ahead and I want you to show me double action. I want you to show me single action, and you get a bang. You're not going to
be detrimental to a new shooter, I feel.
Absolutely. You're going to turn them off, and you're going to get a lot of bad Google reviews from that one. I promise you that.
Yeah.
So I actually did paint mine red, which kind of was problematic in and of itself, because the paint didn't stick very well. And it's just, it's what,
it's definitely one of those things. I think they're a great tool for use as well. I don't know. I've never heard that complacency of people not using snap caps for training. I could see people saying that because, train like you fight, and there's a lot of really hard individuals that want to train specifically. But I've never thought it was a bad idea to use a safe round to get used to how it feels to load ammunition.
Hey, well, I'll tell you what else. There's a game that I like to play called Screw Your Buddy. And I'll load your mags, you load mine, and we'll throw a few snap caps in there, a few dummy rounds in there. And what's going to happen when you're firing let's say we throw it in as the third round, you fire your first two rounds. A, if you're flinching, I get to see that you're flinching, and
I was gonna say.
And B, now you've got to work through malfunction manipulation. So it's really good in that regard as well, not just for learning how to load and unload, but it's really.
Honestly, I never even thought about doing drills like that. Failure to feed drills or failure to fire drills. And true, you get to watch the anticipation of the recoil I'm sure it happens all the time.
It happens, I'll have a new shooter and you'll walk them through, okay, you'll slow them down, focus on the fundamentals. And as soon as you walk away, they're starting to shoot low again. You come back, dial them in, focus them on the fundamentals, and then they start shooting low when you walk away. So that's a lot of times when I'll do that, I'll pull out a dummy round, load it in, and then they'll visually see for themselves that they're throwing the muzzle of the gun down right before the trigger breaks. And it clicks again. It's just like one of those things. It's got to click. They have to understand, why am I telling them to slowly, press the trigger rear in a smooth motion? Well, now they're understanding, because if they anticipate the bang, they're anticipating the recoil, they throw the muzzle down. It's a natural, normal human reaction. And you've got to train through that. And this is how you make yourself aware. So it works very well in that regard.
Yeah, firearms are definitely not a natural motion for people. And you're right. You have to train through that with muscle memory and just consistency of how you're, shooting. I see a lot of people that take training courses or, get their certificates and things like that. And then they'll go to the range and lose all their fundamentals just shooting. I always stress it. I always try to do it myself, but it doesn't matter what you're shooting, where you're shooting. Always think, about what you're doing the first few steps at least, control your grip, control your trigger, all that stuff, and the more you do the fundamentals, the more it becomes second nature.
Absolutely. And you know what? Even myself, right? I say everybody needs to get more training. Everybody, even myself. And training, obviously, there's a difference between training and practice, and everybody needs to get more practice. I spend more time watching people shoot than I do shoot. And, I think everyone should try to get some practice at least once a month and should try to take a training class at least once a year. And, the practice, listen, I'll go to the range, by myself, just trying to get some repetitions in. I've got my own process that I go through to make sure I'm practicing not just what I'm good at, but what I'm not good at, the things I need to work on. And the first few rounds, the accuracy, you've got to knock that rust off, right? And then by the end of your practice session, you've got all those fundamentals built back in, hopefully, and no bad habits, and it's easy to develop the bad habits, which is why you need to get that training once a year to sharpen a knife. You don't want to butcher working with a dull knife. You have to stop, take time to resharpen your knife, and that is incredibly important to everybody. I don't care how advanced you think you are. Every single person needs to get training, more training, and to practice those fundamentals consistently.
Good training is never going to make you a worse shooter, so might as well take it.
Sure. And I've had people come into, various different levels of my classes who have had experience of one kind or the other. Some were military, some have been hunters their whole lives. I've never had anyone say they didn't learn something. And flipping reversing everything, there's been situations where I've taken classes reluctantly, felt like I was being forced to, had to, whatever the case, thought I already knew everything. I could teach the class if I wanted to. And we're not just talking firearms, we're talking, anything. And, if you learn one thing, if you spend 8 hours and you learn one thing, I think it was worth the time that you invested into that class just to learn that one thing.
I definitely agree. Yeah, I 100% agree. I'm with you on this. I think more training is better all the time. Always be thinking, how can I get better at something, and how can I be more proficient in what I'm doing?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100% agree. And then Tacstar, I think you said, was another one of your brands?
Yeah. Some tactical shotgun accessories, AR accessories. You got some carbon fiber hand guards, tactical shotgun accessories, things like that.
Yeah, I think on my 870, I have your side saddle.
Yeah, the side saddle. All right. Yeah, they got the side saddle is a popular one, and we also have a casing catch or brass catcher for the ARs that are also fairly popular. So when you're at the range, obviously you're not dumping your brass on the ground. You can collect that and reload it again.
Or if you're
those ranges that tell you can't pick up your brass.
If you're up in a helicopter shooting at some pigs, you want a brass catcher for sure.
Yeah, because you're not getting those rounds.
No, you're not going to find them. That's true.
No.
Chris, let the listeners know how they can get in touch with you, with your company. Let me know what else you guys have going on in the horizon. The floor is yours. You've got a few minutes to educate me and educate the world on yourself, on Lyman, whatever you want to say.
Yeah, I if anything, I would want to take the time to go ahead and just, reach out to the new loaders and new shooters. If you're thinking about reloading, the biggest piece of advice, like I said, is know what kind of a shooter you are, and then research, and more research. Reloading is very intimidating, the things you have to buy, different components, stuff like that. And then when you shoot your first rounds, me as well, my first loaded rounds, I was kind of sketched out a little bit because I was thinking back, all right, did I put too much powder in? Did I do this, that, and the other thing? You can never do, just like anything in the firearms industry, you can never do enough research on this. There's a lot of great literature out there. We put out a reloading handbook that's very popular within the industry. It's, very unbiased. It uses a lot of the different brands and stuff when we do our load testing and things like that. And, just make sure you get out there. There's a lot of great forums, a lot of great social media pages and stuff like that where you can just learn a ton. And if you guys are looking, Lyman Products, we're coming soon, we're putting out a new reloader, kind of, a little bit of a literature on our website at lymanproducts.com. And then if you're interested in taking a look at the Mark 7 stuff, it's markvii-loading.com.
And definitely take a look at those machines. I'm telling you, watch the videos. You'll thank me for it later. Yeah.
I don't know if you watched, but a big shout out to Gavin Gear, Ultimate Reloader, because he's been doing amazing work with our Lyman side and our Mark 7 side. He's been out some great videos about the press and stuff like that.
Great. It's good to know. Everyone check that out.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to wrap up the podcast here, Chris. I thank you very much for your time. I thank you for educating me on these items as well as educating everyone else. And thanks for spending some time here with me today.
I appreciate the invite for sure. It was a good time. I love talking about not only ours. I have a huge passion for the industry in general and the well-being, the well-doing of this industry. So anytime I can get out there and talk to people, I'm all for it.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So we're going to wrap it up right here. I want to thank everybody for listening to this podcast today. Stay tuned to future podcasts. I've got some great episodes coming up. We're going to talk to some wheelchair shooters and talk about some of their challenges and why they got into shooting. We've got some other great episodes. If you've got an idea for any podcast, I want to hear from you. You can go to alphaconcepts.com/podcast and let me know about it. And we've got an episode coming up, Ask the Instructor, where I take some of the commonly asked questions and I read them on air. So if you have a question that you would like me to answer for you, definitely go to alphaconcepts.com/podcast. And don't forget to subscribe and take a friend shooting. As always, be armed, be trained, and be alpha.